Good afternoon. Welcome to this, the Leeds United Liverpool a roundup of the champions. No, it's not that. It's not. We've got to control our base instincts, Ian. They don't want us to be unbearable. They've got the rest of the summer to listen to us on that front. No, hello everybody. Welcome to another Kerfuffle showcase here, and we've got a bog off deal. Not one, not two. Oh, no, actually, I suppose we could even do three, couldn't you, with you as a consultant? Mr. Iain White is here to talk to us today about crooks and agency mentors. So Iain, first of all, welcome again, as ever.
Thank you.
Joe, do you want to just give us a bit of background about each of those and about what they've, when they've started, what they're obviously doing for people at the moment?
Yeah, so the first in the timeline was the Agency Mentors business, which is a sort of training and mentoring business for estate agents. And that came about through my consultancy work with a number of different estate agents who were becoming increasingly frustrated with what they perceived to be very old-fashioned, very benign methods of training and coaching, where they were doing it as an exercise to fill in tick a box to say that they were doing it and they felt they needed to do it, but weren't really sure or convinced that they were getting any return on their investment, or primarily that they weren't getting any real sustainable change in behaviours, that they'd get a peak after the event, and then 3 or 4 weeks later, everybody was returning back to the old habits. So Agency Mentors is owned by a collection of my clients and Stephen Brown, who we will all know as a very good trainer and mentor. And
a thoroughly good human being as well. Let's add that into the mix.
I would say one of the kindest, nicest gentlemen in the industry, to be fair.
There's room for, here we are. We can talk about Stephen Brown, the good, Simon Whale, the bad, and that leaves you, Iain, unfortunately, the ugly.
I'm willing to accept the ugly tag. Yes. Okay. So what happened?
I keep saying it, Iain. You don't get this on Christopher Watkins, do you?
No, you don't. I don't get this type of abuse. No, I'm gonna hang up in a minute. So so we created a set of principles around how to deliver training and how to monitor and how to create accountability for the training being inducted into people's psyche and the way they do things. So in reality, it's a training. It's an estate agency training business owned by estate agents, developed for estate agents, and that's how that business came about. And then in reality, Crux was a sort of automatic follow-on in the fact that clearly the ability to retain and recruit people were very prevalent, and there was a sort of seemingly unhappiness with the way the recruitment process worked in general. I mean, there are some very good recruiters out there, so I don't want to be a sweeping brush, but there are also some that don't act in the right way ethically, in terms of tapping up your staff or putting a candidate in, and as soon as the rebate period is up, etc., etc. So again, we developed a pay-as-you-go recruitment solution that provides really high caliber, high quality filtering. So we're not a give us the vacancy, we'll fill it tomorrow type of outfit. We're a sort of work with us long term. We'll get to know you, you get to know us. Yeah. We'll understand what good looks like, and we will filter candidates properly. We use very little of the job boards. We're mainly about technology and nurturing candidates through social media and email marketing and databases. Most of the conversations we have with candidates are with people that aren't really ready to move, but we nurture them through a process. And when a suitable vacancy comes up, we'll talk to them, or we nurture them to the point where they are ready to move, because naturally people reach the end of their tether, or they reach the end of their lifespan, or they move, or their circumstances change. So we're not, I suppose our technology is focused very much on gaining the passive recruitment market, not so much the active. And that really was borne out from the evidence we had, which was the active recruitment market is typically the person that your listeners or watchers are about to fire, whereas the passive market is full of the talent. But sometimes talent hits a glass ceiling, falls out with the boss, moves, feels they've been overlooked for a promotion, whatever it might be, and that's where the real talent is. So that's how Crux was born, and the agents obviously love the sort of the fairness of the pay as you go. If the candidate lasts, you pay. If the candidate doesn't, you stop paying. So it's a slightly unique. I wouldn't call it disruptive. I think that's probably a bit strong to call it disruptive, but it's a good cash flow model for the agents, and it enables them to bring in a recruit and if they don't like them after a month, they're not saddled with a recruitment bill or a big.
It obviously puts the onus on you as well, more than ever before, to try and make sure you've got the right person for the job rather than just shoehorning somebody in, doesn't it?
Well, absolutely, and it also automatically removes the behaviour for an errand recruiter to try and nick them out, because if they nick them out, they stop the money coming in. So why would they do it? So it was designed for two reasons, really: to be fair for the agents in terms of the costs, to help out with cash flow if and when that was needed, but also to make sure, if we've got 10 people working for us, 20, 30, 40. We can't look anybody in the eye and say, actually, we're sure that they're honest and everything else. What we can do is say, but what we have put is a bonus and reward structure in place that simply doesn't reward that behaviour. Therefore, why would they behave like that?
Yeah.
That was very important to us. Some of our clients actually still prefer to pay. They just can't be asked with the admin of paying over a period of time. So some of them actually still pay and they get a little discount if they prefer to pay up front. But the majority take the monthly options.
I'm good at payments with you as well, aren't I? And I'm good at administratively.
Actually, I have to say, I don't know about you're good at administratively, but you pay invoices in a very random way. Sometimes you send me 3 lots of money for money you don't owe me, then you won't pay it.
Do you know that? What do they call it? Is it the 8 ball or the 9 ball where you shake it up and it tells you how to? That's how I basically justify my payment. Should I pay Ian this month? The chances are good.
Let me tell you first and foremost, you've never ever been in debt to me. You've always been in the positive, because you pay. At one point you were paying amounts that weren't even on an invoice. I have no idea. Anyway, we managed to sort it out.
I'm not good at paperwork. I think we know that there. Just going back to the model though as well. You mentioned there that actually there is a happy, almost. Again, it's a bit of a wanky phrase, but the symbiotic nature of how closely recruitment sits alongside training and development. So were those two very much done on that basis, that you did see that there was a lot of crossover? And how close do those two companies work closely together, or is that just a convenience thing?
Right. So you're aware of a bit of hot off the press stuff that's going to be happening any minute now. So the first answer is they are very obvious bed partners, but I think the one that sits in middle that binds them together is actually staff retention. And I think a good recruiter should also help you retain staff by, if somebody wants to leave and they happen to be one of our clients, why don't we get involved in helping them retain that person? And of course, good training and mentoring to help people overcome either mental blocks or the fear of change, or just to get a different and more positive mindset. People often leave a place. The most common reason that people leave their job is because they fall out with their boss. That is by far the most common reason.
Yeah.
But the most common reason they fall out with their boss is because they're not actually performing. Now, there are two elements to that. Is the boss equipped to coach them to perform, or to understand that they're getting to this point of leaving? And is the person coachable?
Yeah.
So obviously, if you've got a coaching business, agency mentors, you're able to help these businesses by coaching the leaders so they don't make silly faux pas and lose very valuable staff by not developing people or being too overbearing or whatever it may be that causes people to leave. But the other thing is you can improve the performance of people. And as you know, if people are winning the leagues, the boss tends to be more relaxed about them, whether he's got a good skill or a bad leadership style.
Yeah.
If you're a performer, you tend to get left to your own devices. So, I think a good recruiter shouldn't be chasing the dollar. I think a good recruiter should be tracing relationships that leads to the dollar. And the best way to have a good relationship with someone is to fix their retention if they've got an issue with it. So, we don't really want our people. I know it's a bit bizarre, but we don't really want our people to have vacancies unless it's through expansion. Of course, we will fill their vacancies when sometimes people move away, leave the industry, perhaps unfortunately do fall out, or maybe aren't enough. But ultimately, we really want to be filling vacancies where it's done because the team's performing brilliantly, and actually they've been together for. There's a sort of sweet spot, Simon, that our research tells us that about 3 or 4 years of a team being together, the core team, you tend to hit peak performance in terms of taking market share because everyone's comfortable, everybody's trained, everybody understands the ethos of the brand, and you hit that real sweet spot. But it's amazing how many businesses never get to the sweet spot in terms of team together because there's too much churn.
I'm we kicked off rather taking the mickey a little bit with the Liverpool and Leeds comparisons there, but that actually is quite similar to a sporting team analogy, isn't it?
Well, yeah, constantly changing your manager is rarely a solution. Look at Watford. I mean, what a ridiculous decision that was. But yeah, look, I mean, if you get a group of players or a team that are comfortable around one another, they understand what's expected of them. The culture of the business is clear. Everybody's on board with the goal and the culture and everything else. That takes time to nurture. It's not something you can just drop in place. But if you recruit the right people with the right attributes, when you get to that 3-4 year sweet spot, it can happen a bit quicker. I've seen it happen over 2 years where you just get lucky. You get a combination of people that come together with massive talent as well as just the luck of clicking. But the sweet spot's 3 to 4 years, and we want to help through training and through recruitment. We want to help the agents hit that sweet spot. We don't mind if we're training their team or whether we're helping them find new people to either join or fill gaps. But the two together help with retention, and retention is the glue that holds most businesses either in mediocrity or in a place where they can really excel.
Yeah, it does ring true with me what you were talking about in terms of that retention piece. Many recruiters, as you will know, have come up with all these weird and wonderful new titles like talent management consultants or something like that. And whilst the name is quite cheesy, you can understand where it's coming from, can't you, in terms of what they're trying to actually achieve there. You are trying to keep your existing staff happy and trained up to the full, because as famously said, if you don't, somebody else will.
So some of our contracts are on a retained basis where we are responsible for the well-being of the people. So not only are we filling the gaps if they come up, we're actually we're creating an environment so it's recruitment with a difference. It's a recruitment from the estate agency perspective. We're not just trying to persuade you to take any old piece of crap. In some cases, we're actually working with the business long term to look after the mental stroke, the pastoral care of their team. We're there to spot when somebody is disengaged. We're there to spot when somebody is feeling left out, overlooked, sometimes the reasons people leave, when you actually get the two people that are conflicted in the room, it's just a complete misunderstanding. There is no need for the relationship to break. I've seen it where somebody leaves because they thought they'd overheard that a colleague had got a pay rise, and actually the colleague hadn't had a pay rise at all. Just that sort of stuff. Sorry, Simon. Yeah.
I was just going to say that is again that classic case, though. It's much harder to try and stop once your head's turned, isn't it?
Yes, of course. Look, I mean, obviously, if someone's being underpaid, or if somebody feels they're genuinely not being listened to, and I could give you a list of the leadership faux pas that go on, and that's why some people engage with us to help them with that. So we train that system in their business. We get in their business. They're not paying us to fill the vacancies. They're paying us for the combination of the two things. So, and it's not necessarily
top 10 faux pas. Let's list them through now.
Do you really want the top 10 faux pas?
I would love to hear a couple of the favourites. Come on.
I can't tell you whether these are in the right order, guys, but I can tell you that the number one is definitely breakdown of a relationship between your immediate line manager and the candidate, and that will come through broken promises.
Yeah,
there'll be things like.
That's a massive one, isn't it? It sounds so obvious there, is that people get overexcited about, quite often it's with things like commission plans. They will have given them some sort of verbal contract, and then the salesperson goes out and hits those, and then they renege on the comp plan there. And that's the surest way, isn't it, to lose your talent?
Yeah, not put it in writing, not confirm it, or put it in writing but say circumstances have changed, can't pay it, offer it when you didn't mean it, it, make it impossible for them to hit it. There's a lot of reasons why that might go wrong, but even just simple things like promising them that you'll get them on a training course. Give me a couple of weeks, I'll look into it, but really busy at the moment, and never get them on that development course. Look, I promise you, we'll have you listing properties by this time. By Christmas, you'll be listing. Come Christmas, the guy hasn't even been taken out, or the girl hasn't been taken out. They haven't been. They just feel like it's an act of convenience for the owners. Not that we're on this topic, but I think the best businesses I work with, they are absolutely prepared to have people better than them. They're happy to coach and get people to a higher level than they are. In fact, I would say it's the most rewarding thing on the planet, because if you've got people that are better than you, guess what? You don't need to be at work. As a business owner, you can be somewhere else. Afternoon, chaps.
There you are. Again here, and she echoes what you were just saying there. Lack of understanding of motivation is a key one. Money, praise, support, promotion, absolutely spot on. There's a lady that knows.
I mean, surprisingly as well, Simon, that you'd be really interested. I'd have to do the stats, and I'm happy to get back to your listeners and you. I reckon probably a third of the job offers that we make that are successful, the salary at the new place is below the salary of the old place.
Oh, that is interesting. Yeah,
but the pathway is clear, and they believe there's a better leadership, training, mentoring process. So reaching a glass ceiling is a reason for people will take a step back financially if they feel they can go forward in the long run. People will take a step backwards if they're getting nearer to home. People will take a step backwards if they feel they're getting in an organisation that will genuinely promote their career rather than hold them in place because it's too painful to see somebody move on above the guy that's holding them back.
And of course, the two can be linked in, can't they? You spoke about their number one, the breakdown in that relationship between the top person or their line manager and them. But actually, often, the root cause from that will be the thing we just identified: lack of clarity, lack of delivery on the commission plan, then leads to that breakdown. That's the cause, isn't it, for the top spot there, the relationship issue.
Well, yeah, and if the person dares to push, the person who has been the one that's really been the problem in the relationship, the leader, then feels offended, and the relationship further degrades, and it's just madness. I see it a lot. I see it a lot, and would prefer to fix it than have a vacancy. But if the vacancy arises, of course, we're there. But we would prefer to work with the business, of course, on a paid relationship. We're not a charity, but we would prefer to work with the business long term, so they never have a vacancy unless it's through expansion. Of course, that's a perfect world. It doesn't happen like that. People leave, relationships break. People go through cycles of changing industry, and so on and so forth. So you can never have that perfect scenario with no vacancies. But it's much better filling. It's much more rewarding filling a vacancy that's there through expansion than it is filling a vacancy through previous failure.
How often do you think sometimes they don't even deal with the confrontation with the line manager? I've seen on a number of occasions where, and the argument is obviously you should be able to have an open conversation. But nevertheless, I have seen it where it's degraded to such a degree, they never end up actually having that conversation with their boss, with their line manager to resolve it. They just up sticks and go.
Yes, I think that's much more prevalent in today's world than it was 10 years ago. I think possibly the fact that it's just so easy to get employment that maybe it can be a bit flippant.
That's still the case now, though. What are you seeing out there? What are your people at Crux seeing in terms of the market at the moment? We hear in the wider news that, of course, jobs that just didn't have hardly any sort of applications, even things like barkeeper jobs or famously agricultural ones, are suddenly now, because of obviously all these job losses, getting much higher level quality recruits applying for those jobs than ever before. Is it still buoyant out there? Is there still a lot of movement on both sides?
Yes, I mean, normally speaking, up until very recently, COVID-19, we would have been what I would have been called a candidate-led scenario. There were very few candidates of the right caliber, and there were quite a lot of vacancies. We're now in a position where actually the vacancies we've got more vacancies than we've ever had, but they're different vacancies. People have restructured, reimagined, they've reinvented their businesses, which have meant that they've perhaps lost some people but recruited some new ones. Those vacancies need filling. So we're seeing a lot of activity in that space. But generally speaking, there is a better quality candidate out there. And those candidates that are good quality know, regardless of what people might think about the economic scenario, they know that they can shop around. They know that they have the ability to go and literally interview the businesses rather than the other way around. Good talent doesn't. I mean, it'll let you interview. If you're a really good player, you don't. Of course, you're going to go and mind your P's and Q's on an interview, but in reality, it's you interviewing them. We have candidates getting multiple offers all the time, job offers all the time. But the key is in filtering the candidates and filtering the wheat from the chaff, because of course, a lot of the people that are in the system, the candidate system, they are simply somebody else's reject. They're somebody else that's been fired because they can't perform.
Yeah.
But to go back to your first thing in terms of people being flippant and not approaching their boss, we actually try to make that part of the process. So if we get a candidate in, the first thing we will say is, if there's a boss relationship, is, have you spoken to your boss about it? And there's two things for that. One, because I think that's part of a fair retention system to the industry. And secondly, it tells us the caliber of the person we're talking to. Because if the answer is, well, no, I can't be asked, it's like, that would be a black mark for us. It would be, okay, so you've got a problem, and your first reaction is to throw your toys out the pram. Well, would I really want to give that candidate to you, for example, as an employee? Would you want me to knowingly put you in front of someone that, if the shit hit the fan or it got a bit frosty, you might not be? Half the time, these managers are oblivious to the fact that the problem has broken down. They actually don't know. Yeah. Well, they certainly can't fix it unless the candidate tells them. So yes, it is part of our process to say, look, hey, if that's the reason, if they say, look, we're moving away, I've moved to Cornwall, for example. Okay, well, that's a straightforward scenario. It's not that you. And often they'll say, you can ring my boss and you'll get a reference. Okay, well, we've got a grade A candidate here. Looks like a good thing. If obviously their boss just happened to one day come in and was a little bit sharp with his tongue and they've decided that it's time to leave, well, I wouldn't class that as a great candidate. What have you done? Are you still there, Simon, or have you disappeared? Oh my God, what did you do? You just
I don't know what happened there. So I don't know. The Zuckerberg's trying to get me. He sees the rise of Kerfuffle and he keeps blocking me every now and again.
No,
sorry, I don't know what's going on there. Yeah, and you were just talking, sorry, about often the boss themselves didn't even know there was an issue there.
Yeah, look, it's very common for the boss to be completely ignorant to it, because obviously one of their failings is they're not listening.
Yeah.
So, or in some cases, they know there's a problem there, but they don't think any of the ownership of the problem lies with them, none whatsoever. It can't possibly be them. They're the manager. They've got a title. They got promoted. They're the manager.
How often, Iain, do crooks ever literally say to a candidate, "Look, you're just not right for what we're looking for"? Do you, or is there always? Can you always place somebody?
No, we will tell them that we wouldn't be prepared to put them forward for this particular role. They can apply direct if they wish. We would always add them to our database because they might not be suitable for this role. They might be suitable for another. I mean, we get some real, it's just like an estate agent registering a buyer. That's just a real obvious, can I say it, tosspot? Just someone that no one's going to touch with a barge pole. We would be polite. We would pretend, but they wouldn't go anywhere near our database because we wouldn't want to have to deal with them again. Nicola Broomham, who does recruitment, and she's very good at it, by the way. She has a no. I love the fact she's got this no arseholes policy. Now I can't nick it because it's hers, but of course, no arseholes. It wouldn't be any good for us to be presenting poor candidates because you just don't get the opportunity to fill the second, third, and fourth role that comes up over the next 10 years.
She had a particular candidate yesterday. It was.
She's much more constrained than I was, so she was much more professional because I would have definitely replied.
We should all be sending your pizzas round to that fella's house, shouldn't we? Making a anyway.
Yeah. I don't know about pizzas. I think we should be sending around the bother boys to go and bob.
Well, speaking of bother boys, here he is. Here's Mr. Perdios. He was just saying he left you. Sorry, I thought he was actually making a point. Many talented people who felt they were furloughed for too long actively interviewing. Okay, so that's a key point there, isn't it? That they almost feel resentful of the companies that put them on furlough and then going out and just looking for their own stuff. There is a real sort of it's difficult, isn't it? I mean, obviously the whole lockdown period was difficult, but you had some companies where the furloughed staff felt bitter that they'd been furloughed. You felt in some businesses the people who'd been kept on felt bitter because they felt like they were being asked to carry the shoulders of themselves, the business. If you weren't in active communication with your staff during that lockdown period, it could lead to, as you discussed earlier, those misunderstandings quite easily, couldn't it?
Yes, and I think Charlie's absolutely right. There are a lot of people where the furlough process, was perceived wrongly by the person being furloughed, that it was you're not needed by the business. It was a reaction to keep the business afloat. It was the right and proper thing to do, but the communication around it was poor in some cases. Charlie's was an example where it wasn't, by the way. he dealt with that brilliantly, and he phased back the unfurloughing, and it's all worked out well. But yeah, and the other problem that we've seen is as the unfurloughing started to unruffle and people started to come back, that's when the real angst started, because it's, well, why not me? Why am I not? And the person that was being brought back was being talked to and patted on the back and being, brought out the deep freeze and re-energized. But the people that weren't being unfurloughed, they were often overlooked by some, particularly the bigger businesses, dare I say it, the big corporates.
Yeah,
sort of didn't communicate with the people that were on the sidelines, and those people probably started to feel a bit worthless or a bit scared or a bit worried.
yeah.
And that may have influenced them to maybe make contact with people, the recruitment side of the business, or to start sending CVs around. Again, communication, Simon, isn't it? It's just communication.
How is the market at the moment for staff in terms of their fears over the health side of things? To a large degree, are the people talking to you obviously by definition kind of past that point, or is it a pointed question that they are now asking? Is what is the provision that the company is putting in place to make sure that its staff's looked after?
We've not been asked the latter question once, to the best of my knowledge.
Okay, that's interesting.
Genuinely not. I mean, obviously, a lot of interviews are handled now via the powers of video technology, or certainly the first frontline interview. I would say the vast majority of our job offers have actually been done with no physical meeting at all. Some people like physical. I think it's down to an individual thing, but we have not been asked. I suspect the people that are in the first camp are probably very happy being furloughed, so they'll just sit and wait as long as possible.
Yeah. Well, they'll be shouting health over wealth, but really they're just happy sitting at home watching Loose Women.
In what context, Loose Women? The program, or just generally Loose Women? I mean, this is.
I was thinking the program, but don't go there.
Right.
Iain, one of my biggest frustrations, and in fact, I know talking to many of the trainers who sat around having drinks with them there, is that Brits and agents in the UK have quite often talk the talk in terms of, yes, we really value training, we value development of staff, and it just simply doesn't seem to be matched up by what you witness, in terms of the minute that the market tightens, that's one of the training and development fund goes straight out the window, probably at the very time you need that most. Why do you think there is such a why do you think that training and development is used so sparingly? Is it simply down to date it's been quite an expensive process, or is it more to it than that?
It's really difficult for me to answer that, because I don't necessarily. Well, one, it doesn't frustrate me if that was the question. I think that's down to each business owner. They have to make a decision on how they spend their dollar, and that's up to them. I think they would be wise to spend the money in some sort of development tool, because I think it leads to turnover of staff, and turnover of staff kills all growth. Generally speaking, we observe the companies that are prepared to spend on training, because that's how we know them, and that's how we would have come into contact with them, whether it's the consultancy side, the recruitment side, or the absolute outright agency mentors training business. So, but of course, there are businesses that perhaps would rather save the money, but they will be the ones, I guarantee you, the ones that save the money on training will be the ones either with the biggest recruitment bill, or the ones with the businesses struggling, because they often have to keep replacing people and they never get to the sweet spot. So
it's like whack-a-mole to a degree. You can save in one area, but it's going to push up the cost in the other area. Yeah,
absolutely. I think and I think younger people coming through the ranks now are much more expecting training and development. It's almost we definitely get asked, what training plans are there? What promotion ladders are there? We get asked that a lot.
Do you get asked that more these days than you used to, do you think?
Well, we're a fairly new company, so I can't really answer that. You'd need to speak to some of the established recruiters, but certainly we get asked it. And I suppose what I can say is, as a recruiter, let's say when I had my MD's hat on at Romans and I was interviewing, I can't remember being asked. I was asked, how much are you going to pay me?
Yeah.
But now it's, what's my working rota? How many holidays do I get? There is definitely a difference, but they do want to know what the development is and how the business can help them get better at what they do. I mean, they want to know that. And I think that's right to want to know that. And I think the businesses that provide that are likely to recruit better people and retain better people. So any cost they save on training is, as you say, the bashing the mole scenario. It'll just pop up and bite them somewhere else through staff retention or staff disengagement. Either of those two things are ridiculously expensive, much more expensive than the training.
Yeah. And Charlotte comes in saying training hasn't always been as accessible for all or not structured enough to make a difference. Charlotte, if only there was some sort of learning management system that people could access cheaply, effectively, with some of the best training talent on board. I mean, until we know that, what would, you'd have to call it something like Able Agents or something like that and search for it on the Kerfuffle website. I absolutely agree with you, though, there, Charlotte. I asked it kind of tongue-in-cheek. Clearly, there's the expense side of it when you do send staff, and it's not just the expense of paying for a trainer per se, is it? If you, as you want to do, often you will want multiple team members to take advantage of it. Sending a number of branch managers or key members of staff away for a half-day session, a full-day session, has a real impact on the business. I think the new models that we are seeing coming around, and Charlotte's obviously Able Agent is an excellent example of that, and the way that you guys at Agency Mentors are pivoting that is, I think, a direct response, isn't it, to one of those challenges that we've got out there in the wider market.
Yeah, I think the key word that Charlotte has there, and Charlotte won't mind me mentioning that we're right in the process of putting together a collaborative product to get the best of both what Able Agent do and Agency Mentors. But
no, I'm shocked. I feel manipulated now, Ian. I feel like
I didn't even know she was coming online. I can assure you, this is no. However, the word that she said was structured. So.
Yeah.
If you've got a fee problem, rushing around to try and find some guy that will talk to your people with a PowerPoint presentation about how to fix fees in a half-day session. I mean, come on, you cannot fix fees in a business with a half-day presentation on PowerPoint. That's bollocks. You cannot do that.
Ian, stop sitting on the fence. Stop sitting on the fence.
But you can't. If anybody says they can do it on you can't. You have to permanently change behaviours within people to get the mindset right to be able to be proud enough, loud enough to charge high fees. I don't think there's anybody in the UK capable of doing that with a half-day PowerPoint presentation. And if they are, they're not charging enough. I think you need to get under the skin of people, and you need to get to learn them through a structured development plan, which is what Charlotte's talking about there, and a consistent touch point with them through the training calendar. And myself and Charlotte are on a call. I can't remember when it is now, but with a large, well-known northern business to actually put together a proper piece that deals with mindset, technical qualification, actual real qualifications, which is where the Able Agent are absolutely brilliant at. We do the mindset stuff and get people in the right frame of mind to actually win and do that sort of stuff, but in a structured and proper processed manner. But also, we want to bring affordability to the game. We want to bring affordability to the market.
Yeah. Well done you for, after obviously having been a good old northerner, being now a southern sellout. It's good to see you giving something back to the north again. So well done there.
We do a lot of work in the north. What are you talking about? It's my home. It's my home.
Oh, and speaking of which, Southerners, I don't know if Norwich counts as Southern, or certainly. Hello, Andy. How are you? You're doing well there. There's a man who believes in training and development. And actually, Andy's a really good example there, isn't it, of somebody who actually has the gumption to pick up, regardless of what the company's doing, he sets out to better himself, to develop and do it, and we could do with more of that, couldn't we? That self-development ethos.
Yes, I think with self-employment models, we will see a little bit more of that. I mean, obviously, it's rare to have someone like Andy who's employed by somebody that literally spends their own time, money, and effort and energy building their careers. But look, let's think about this for a minute. Andy Overman, a lot of people know his name. There are other people that are probably just as talented as Andy, but no one's got a clue who they are. Well, that's because they don't put themselves. They don't actually spend the time, effort, and money around the circuit getting themselves engaged with people that can better them. So, So I think you will see more individuals taking an interest in their career development because their self-employed model will become part of their business expense. But I think that's one area where the retention is going to be coming into play. Because if you're a recruited model, which I think will be here to stay, I don't think that's going to get kicked into touch by any stretch. But if you're not providing that development, you're much more likely to lose somebody to the self-employed model. If you're not providing leads, number one, or that'll probably be the biggest attraction. But the second one is development. How do you make this person better?
Yeah. And Andy's just answered the lesson as to why he has to do the development himself. He hears us being serious, and he says, "I'm just in the state agency hall." So thank you for taking the tone of the show down, Andy, if that was possible at all there, and even a little smiley emoticon there to help us. Iain, you've spoke a lot there about retention. That theme's come up a number of times as we've been talking about it. How a state agency in general is known, and especially the corpus is known for having a very high level of churn. What is can you put a figure on what a sensible level of churn is within the business? Or is there, when you're doing let me ask you another way, doing your consultative effect with businesses, would there be a level 20%, 25% churn of staff a year that you would say, look, we've got a real problem here? At what point do you start worrying about that level of churn?
First of all, I'd worry about it if it was zero.
Yeah, okay, that's very good.
Because I think if there's no churn, you're either not developing people to the point where they could leave, and also you're probably keeping people that you shouldn't. So I think zero is just as dangerous as 100%. Yeah. Yep. If you take the two spectrums, turnover of staff is largely it varies massively from corporate to independent. So if you have an independent business, Charlie Perdios, if he's still on here, he's got an independent business. They tend to retain staff better because the owners of the business are nearer to the shop floor. They're nearer to the decision making. The businesses are more, they're quicker. They tend to provide, they repair kit quicker. There's stories in some of the corporates that the computer goes tits up and, it's 4 weeks before the SLA from head office to mend the bloody computer. Well, that creates staff turnover. To answer your question, I would have said that, if you're around sort of 15%, I think you'd be in a very comfortable place. How many businesses are at 15%? Very, very few.
Yeah. Well, I mean, just what would you feel? That 10%, 15% of businesses?
No, I'd say a lot less. I reckon 2 or 3% are in that. But I am guessing, and there's going to be loads of people ringing in now saying, hang on. There might be, if there are, there'll be the small independent businesses that have only got 2 or 3 people in the first place. One of them's the owner, one of them's the owner's partner or brother, or so those obviously don't turn over staff very often.
All these views are Iain's, and he stands behind them 100%. So please direct all of your. It's clearly Charlie's not on here. I think he's doing his wig at the moment. So
these are guest statistics. These are absolutely guessed.
Guesstimates. That's what we call them.
Guesstimates. Yeah, that's a good word. They're not. There's no scientific. There's just a gut feel there.
Andy, in all seriousness, I don't go to work to be second best. Second place is the first place of a loser. I don't know what that says about Arsenal down there in 10th spot, but we'll leave that. Again, we've had too much footy on the show already. And Mark Bevan's obviously just a bit confused because he's shouting, "Who are you?" So he's one of those. Okay, Iain, how are you changing the model then? What do you think you're doing differently in both of these businesses that sets you apart?
Well, I think the first thing that we're going to be doing with the agency mentors model is, I can't give too much detail away because we haven't got the finalised product until Friday, but we're looking to bring a low-cost, subscription-based platform that is a regular touch point with the various people in your business to make it affordable, achievable, convenient and easy to do it. So it may not involve all of your staff trundling into London to get a train ticket and sit in a room of 25 other people to learn something. It may it may be a little bit more different to that. So so I think the subscription model provides, imagine if you were recruiting somebody and you said, oh, and by the way, one of the benefits of working for me, if it was someone you were fighting to get signed up, is that I will subscribe you to a proper development platform. We're talking about relatively marginal cost in relation to the salary, a monthly figure for these people per office. We're going to be charging the model, needs to be finalised, and that model also then engages with other trainers from within the industry to collaborate to deliver the proper structured requirements of these people. We know our strengths is mindset and performance. We know, it's not compliance, it's not the exam side of it. It might not even be the technical know-how. We're the nitty-gritty, pragmatic. If you do this today, it will affect this tomorrow. Get in and make this the scripting. That's what we do very well.
Nitty Gritty would be a great company name for one of your businesses. That sums you up. Either nittygritty.com. If you haven't registered that says what you do.
Unfortunately, now probably 3 of your listeners have. So it's off the table now. But I would imagine that's a very good title. But I'd imagine it went some time ago.
Yeah, okay. That's a big game changer, that though, isn't it, Ian? Because actually, everything we're getting familiar now. In the old days, software as a service. It was literally just software. But so many businesses are going down that subscription model where, again, you've got certainty on a monthly basis, cash flow, all the benefits there. But equally as well, you really only use or consume the amount of the service that you want to, and getting that tier right is critical, isn't it?
Yeah, look, I think the price point, we want to bring it to the masses. We want to make it affordable to whoever wants to do it. We don't want money to be the reason they don't.
Yeah.
I can understand sometimes that time might be the reason that they don't. I accept that, although I think, not making the time to train people now is nowhere near as expensive as if they leave or they fail and they don't, they miss out on that 20 grand deal or that listing or whatever. So that we may have been able to prevent through the training or create the opportunity to get it in the first place. But I think bringing training to the point where it's high quality, it affects behaviours and it's cost effective is where we want to pivot to come and announce sometime next week probably. You've been privileged enough to see some of those workings, and we've consulted and spoken to various people, and the type of people we're collaborating with to get there. So we're very sorry.
It's very exciting. I think it's it's one to watch in terms of changing that, because the perception of obviously recruitment is it's one of those necessary evils, isn't it? And not least because, paying the 15-20% of whatever the fee, everything else there means that you, a bit like we've done the football analogy too often, but you can't make too many mistakes, can you? Because of the price of getting these people on board. Whereas if you do know that hopefully you're an expanding business and you just, a bit like your old mentor Dale, didn't he? He used to just factor into churn into the model. You know that some people will be leaving, so just accept that and plan ahead.
Yeah, which is exactly where the sort of hands-on retention stroke recruitment model comes from, is that always be recruiting, not to make job offers, but so that you've got a bench of people ready to go. Right now we all know the agents are really struggling with the sheer volume. Yeah. Imagine if someone left. Imagine if someone walked out tomorrow. Jesus, what are you going to do? Where are you going to? How are you going to fill that gap? What you'll do is you'll make a really bad decision and then recruit the first person that walks in. You need to recruit the best people.
Yeah.
Dale's favourite saying was, Can I swear on this? Can I make sure you're better off having a hole than an arsehole?
Hang on a minute. Was this at the moment they decided to go for me at Repeat?
Yes. No, it was just a thing. Don't hire quickly.
And the thing is, I can actually imagine in that mannerism that he has, delivering that perfectly as well. So,
he would ask you, why did you recruit that arsehole?
Yeah, well, you didn't go too far wrong, did you, at Romans, from what I can remember? It wasn't certainly they wouldn't have lasted there long if they were. Ian, just to talking about the training side of things, though, as well. So Google famously, I think they've abandoned it now, but they used to have that kind of 20% ethos whereby their staff would focus on their own policies, or they got to do their own projects. What do you think realistically somebody should be setting aside for development, either as a principal of the business for their staff or for somebody themselves to self-develop? What do you think is reasonable, as you said, because you've still got a busy week, you've got other stuff to do. What how much time should you set aside for it?
I think it depends where you are in your development, really. I think in your earlier career, I think you should be setting more side of time to get yourself qualified, to get yourself technically correct, and to get the mindset. Obviously, the further you go into the business, the more you've picked up, and therefore you might need a little bit more around the leadership of others. Yeah. I mean, in terms of budget, I would have said that, if someone was earning £25,000 a year, I think it's perfectly reasonable to be spending £1,500 per annum on that person's training.
So that's an interesting angle. But I meant in terms of time, actually, just in terms of how much time would you dedicate to that basis?
Personal development, I think you're probably talking 10-15% of your time, but I think there should be 10-15% of the time where somebody else is taking responsibility for your development as well within the business.
Okay.
So if I was a manager of a business and I'm not the one doing the listings per se, and I'm not the ones I'm leading a team of salespeople, my entire job should be to be training and developing these people all the time. It's like 90% of my job. The rest might be budgets. So I think it depends where you are, but I certainly think anywhere between 5-10% of your annual salary is probably a reasonable top up to provide to people as an additional. So some really enlightened businesses now are making job offers of, I don't know, £18,000 basic, OT of 25,000, and you get £2,000 allowance to spend as you see fit. But here is our selection of options. We work with ABC, and we'll book you on, we'll pay for it, but it's your choice. Now, some of those people never take the booking up.
Yeah, but
it's there. The offer's been made, and it can be quite a good closing tool if you've got a candidate that's looking at business A, business B, business C. Imagine if you were a candidate and you're thinking, hang on a second, they're already willing to invest. It certainly wouldn't go against you.
Okay. And how important is it today to be either to be a generalist, so that because obviously there are many of these agencies at the moment, there's fewer staff than ever, so you need to wear a few hats. So how, to be able to wear a number of hats, or is it more important to be a specialist and actually just be completely focused on that?
I know really good businesses that do both. Okay. So I know businesses that are very compartmentalized. You've got a front of house, you've got the guys that do the viewings, you've got the team that do the valuations, you've got the sales progression, and they're very, very compartmentalized. I would say that compartmentalized businesses need extremely strong leadership, because otherwise the customer can be felt. You need very good systems and processes, and because
they can fall in the gap, you mean, if it's not joined up or not?
Fall in the gap, pillar to post, lack of communication between the two various different bits and pieces. I know of one business, I don't know if it's okay to name that runs that absolutely world class. I mean, absolutely fabulous.
Well, if you're saying something nice about them, you can name them.
Well, Jones Robinson in Newbury, they have exactly that very process-driven business. But I also know businesses where everybody is now being trained to do everything.
Yeah.
So they are the viewer, the front of house, they're everything. So I don't think I would criticise or have a view on that. I would just say if you're going to do it, you need to be elite, whichever way you do it. Quealy & Co down in Sittingbourne have got a similar business to Jones Robinson in that nice structured, and it works brilliantly. I mean, both are market leaders by
very good agents,
significant margins. So you can't deny that. That structure works. There are challenges in that structure, though, make no mistake. And the reason that structure works in those two businesses is because of Dee and because of Charles Robinson. I mean, they are the reason it works, not necessarily the structure. But the fact that they make it absolutely work. Other businesses are a little bit more freer with that. And I think there are some agents that would prefer to be very, very specific and see a career path, and there are other agents that actually would be bored stiff doing one thing all the time. So again, you've got to recruit the right people into those models. If you've got a free spirit that doesn't want to be a caged bird type of thing, and they want to do a bit of everything, great. But there are some people that really hate viewings and love valuations, and why would you make them do it? So
if you were starting up tomorrow, and a lot of people will breathe relieved that you're not, would you be going for your first recruits? Would they be from agency, or would you take that famously Foxton's approach of taking people from outside of industry as long as they had the best attitude? Or would you not be tied to one particular? You would just have a blend of both?
to be honest with you, attitude, regardless of their career background, would be just the attribute and assets would be their number one criteria. If they're capable of, they wouldn't have to show knowledge of doing the job. They would just have to have the right skill sets to do it. I can train someone to be an estate agent. You can train someone to be an estate agent. You can't train someone to be just a winner, a go-getter. So it would be all down to the personality and the assets of the person. What they did in the past would be totally irrelevant to me.
We were talking before about how closely actually recruitment and training fit. Recruitment and estate agency are quite close, aren't they? And a lot of people bounce between the different industries. Quite often it's counter-cyclical in terms of there. Are there other industries that on the whole have a similar mindset that leads to them doing well in estate agency if they choose to have a career change?
In estate agency as we knew it before COVID-19, because I think we're seeing some changes in the way that the mental aspect of estate agency. But yes, I think funnily enough, recruitment is a very transferable set of skills. Obviously, any sales, we see people coming from car sales, we see people coming from sales rep type roles into and out of estate agency. Simon, just to give you an idea, I've got to be on one at 3:30, so just to manage time.
I'm used to people leaving me, and it's one of the things.
There are some transferable things, but I think some of those industries now would struggle with what the new look estate agency might look like. So it'd be interesting to see how that develops and evolves, or how estate agency evolves, because obviously as estate agency evolves, hopefully for the better, touch wood, it looks like it's going to from where I'm sat. I think that might change a little bit, and we might be bringing in people from more customer service, retail side of the industry, and then have fewer but much higher paid people that actually can close deals, surrounded by very high customer service, ethical people. But you've got the one big gun that can do the deal, that can shut the house down, get the instruction, tie the deal up. Maybe surrounded by the Australian model. You've seen it. They have these big guns that can do everything. They're the personality in the world. Everyone knows their name. They're famous. And they've got a team of 4 or 5 people around them that do everything. They're not necessarily salespeople. They're organised admin, they're marketing people. They're RT type people. Very, very concierge type. Like the sort of concierge that you get at a hotel. That real high level of nothing's too much trouble.
So if we're looking at one of the dynamics we've got at the moment, obviously, as you said there, because a lot of agencies are now doing more with less staff, and you just spoke about there that some people are having to be generalists all over the area. And I promise I'm not raising this question because so many of my members on the website are outsourced operations. But should those businesses, do you think, be looking at outsourcing more and allowing their teams to specialise?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I think you should now be asking the question: can I outsource it? Before you actually make it an internal. I mean, with the exception of the valuation and the
valuation is sacrosanct, isn't it? That's holy. Iain, obviously, Peter Knight wrote a brilliant 4i yesterday on that very basis. About look at what can be done outsourced, and if you can do it for the same quality, hopefully at the same or even less price, you'd be crazy not to, wouldn't you?
Guy, look, if you've got anybody listening to this, or when it goes out, if they haven't read Peter Knight's 4i article of this morning, they need to get it and read it, because he's hitting the nail on the head about the changes that are coming in the industry in terms of outsourcing stroke technology to do some of these more mundane tasks. But outsourcing creates such flexibility and such ability to expand, grow, retract. It's just a modern, flexible way of doing business. With the exception of that meet and greet and that put the ball in the net, tie the deal up, get the house on the market, present your strategy. That for me is all about people, as in your people, the people that are controlling, actually working on the brand. Everything else I think can be, I'm not saying you should outsource it. I think you should at least take the time and effort to look at outsourcing versus personal headcount to solve the problem.
Well, as I keep talking about, it's fine if you're going to keep it in-house, but at least come up with a plan of how you're going to improve that and do it better than you are at the moment, which ironically might come back to it being a training and development piece, won't it?
Training, development, or technology, or a combo of all those things. Yes.
Well, look, I'm conscious, obviously, you've got to get off and leave me, as you always do. We're just going to come on because you've been really kind again and come up with a couple of different offers for the businesses for Kerfuffle members. But just before that, you are both of those businesses are 5-star rated, and I encourage everyone, as usual, to go and have a look at Crux or have a look at Agency Mentors on the Kerfuffle website. Often there's written reviews. We obviously have video reviews on many of them as well. Looking at the Agency Mentors, what I can see here, Heather Cook from Paris says, I started working with Steve Mead during March and have really benefited from his ideas and suggestions. Steve's very direct. Is that something down to the leads element again there? He's very direct in his approach and will challenge our way of thinking. If we don't agree, we'll consider our point of view and prompt discussion. Steve is working as a mentor with one of our team who is new to his role and in his early days of leadership. He's been great at helping to be my colleagues confident, as well as working through generic leadership skills and more specific estate agency skills. He's always prepared and always has a superb sense of humour. I would challenge that, but I'm not going to do it here. And must invade challenging times. And then Kevin, just in terms of the Crux side of things, he says, my first and main experience with Crux, again with Steve, which I can honestly say that I now class as a true friend. From day one, he found out about me as personally and then became invested in me and has always put my best interests at heart as a main priority. His advice I take 100% and could not continue my journey in this industry without his support. I fully recommend him as part of any business. You don't hear that about too many. You mentioned Nicola and a few of the others, but you don't hear that about too many generic recruitment people, do you?
No, it's nice to hear. I mean, obviously pleased that people want to write those things about us, which is nice to hear.
It's all right. We've just put this. We've put this review estate site here just for you, Ian, so don't worry about that. You're passing back the love now for our wonderful Kerfuffle members. Do you want, if you could remember, because I know you suffer a little bit from the do you remember the deals you got on the table for us?
I do indeed. Right, so me personally, I will provide a 1-hour training session to a group of people from any individual company that want training on whatever topic they want training.
Brilliant.
The first 10, I can't just make that awesome. So the first 10 to apply, 1-hour session on whatever topic you want, fees, prices, valuation, whatever you want it to be. And anybody that wants to engage with us at Crux, contact them, mention this Kerfuffle deal, and we will do your first placement for you with the 20, or your first or next if you're a current client, at 25% off the bill. Doesn't apply to any placements we've already placed, guys. So don't be thinking if there's anyone out there thinking, hang on, we've just placed somebody in there. These are placements that have not yet been tied up as of today.
Oh, Ian. It was so wonderful until the small print. No, that is really good, because actually you've done something that actually a lot of people don't often think about. Is we're always very willing to put out deals there for new clients, and understandably sometimes existing clients do, but as long as it's an existing client who's going to do a bit of future business, you're rewarding them, and I've got to thank you for that. Ian, for once I am finishing on time ahead of time. So thank you once again for taking your time to explain to us all there. I certainly got a better idea now. Please keep us up to date. I know you will anyway on the when you've got more details on the model, and we'll obviously share that with everyone when we get the chance. Until then, Ian.
Thank you, Simon. Cheers, guys.
Enjoy the league win. Cheers, matey.
Bye. Bye-bye.